revealed the details of how the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream 2. He put out a report explaining that this was a extensively planned operation starting in late 2021, executed in June 2022 when some U.S. Navy divers used the cover of a NATO exercise to place these bombs on the Nord Stream 2 pipelines in the Baltic Sea. And then a few months later, September 2022, the bombs went off. And since then, there's been the mystery about who did it, but we all knew it was the U.S., and Cy Hirsch confirmed the details with his reporting. But in response to Cy Hirsch, there's been a very puzzling lack of interest. The U.S. media, for the most part, is not touching Cy Hirsch's story, and U.S. politicians are not talking about it, even though this legendary reporter just come out with a story on how the U.S. blew up a major international piece of infrastructure with huge implications, an act of war, basically, not only against Russia, but also Germany, because the Nord Stream 2 connected Germany and Russia, bringing cheap Russian gas to Germany. So politicians are talking about it. So that means that some people are talking about it to politicians. So Richie Torres, who's a member of Congress from New York, he was speaking recently at a public event, and some of his constituents got up and asked him about whether he plans to seek answers about the U.S. bombing of the Nord Stream 2.
Cy Hirsch just released the fact that the United States blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You weren't briefed on that. Why not? Are you going to put a congressional probe into that? Yes or no? Because this ain't no ordinary journalist. You know that.
So,
I want to hear what he has to say.
Nord Stream is a pipeline that transfers oil from Europe, particularly Germany. I'm sorry, from Russia to Germany. So we don't have the authority to investigate pipelines.
All right.
Yeah, we don't have the authority to investigate if this happens in some other country, even though the allegation here is that we blew it up. We somehow don't have the authority to investigate that. That's because we don't want to investigate our own act of sabotage. That's what he's saying.
Come on, now that's bullshit. You know that. Victoria Nuland herself said she's happy that it's a pile of metal underwater. Do you share her sentiment?
Here's what we know. The Europeans are conducting an investigation.
They investigated.
And it is true.
Why did Joe Biden say that we are going to get rid of the Nord Stream pipeline? And when asked, but wait a minute, that's run by Gazprom in Germany, how are you going to do it? He said,
we'll be able to do it.
You have definitive evidence.
Yeah, we do. It's called Cy Hirsch.
Then produce the evidence.
He already
You already produced the evidence. Read the article.
Listen, this is Cy Hirsch. This is the My Lai massacre. Okay, this is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He is not going to publish something he can't prove. So unless you're naive enough and you don't know that, I'm here to inform you. I'm at least asking for congressional inquiry into whether or not it's true, because his credibility alone should prompt that, don't you think?
The Europeans are conducting an investigation.
We know the United States did this.
It seems like you know the answer to the question. So
well, what are you going to do? I'm your constituent.
Answer your question.
I'm your constituent. I want you to actually do something about it.
I'm going to try to answer your question once more, and then I'm going to move on. The Europeans are conducting.
That's a non-answer. What are you doing? Because if the United States did this, you are going to, you have to hold them accountable. This is listen, we are on the verge of a nuclear war right now. I don't think you know that, and if the people here don't know that, they should. You talk a big game about the Bronx. You talk a big game about a lot of things, but guess what? None of it's going to matter if we're all dead. Think about that for a second, right? You are leading us into a nuclear war. What's happening in Ukraine directly affects what's happening here. You don't think you're going to get us into a nuclear war? Is exactly how we get into a nuclear war. Now, as your constituent, I demand that you stop funding the Ukrainians. I understand that you're also an Israeli lobby plant. Look, how can you deny what's happening to the Palestinians, but you can defend what's going on in Ukraine? And now you're trying to erase their history. You are the biggest fraud. You think George Santos is a liar? You're the biggest fraud here.
So there it is, Richie Torres being confronted, and this is how he responded on Twitter. My town hall was hijacked by pro-Putin propagandists who blamed the U.S. rather than Vladimir Putin for Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine. It's tragic to see useful idiots whitewashing Putin's war crimes. I stand with the Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom. That's Richie Torres' response. So, look.
Wow, dude. That's amazing. I still streaming?
You know, we can put aside the McCarthyite smears. Those can be dismissed out of hand. We've seen them enough by now. Everyone does that. Ilhan Omar did the same thing. After Ilhan Omar warned that arming Ukraine with billions of dollars in U.S. weapons would be likely disastrous, she turned around and voted for arming Ukraine with tens of billions of dollars in weapons. And then when her constituents confronted her, she accused them of spreading Russian propaganda. So that's the playbook that these people follow. But note how he said that, well, the Europeans are conducting an investigation, so we don't have to do that. Well, let's hear what European lawmakers have to say about that, because they're over in Europe. They're, in this case, elected to the European Parliament, and they don't see any investigation, at least one that they take seriously. So this is Mick Wallace. He is a member of the European Parliament from Ireland. Check out what he said.
Only last September, Commission President von der Leyen stated that it was paramount to now investigate the Nord Stream pipeline attack, and that any deliberate disruption of active European energy is unacceptable and will lead to the strongest possible response. The strongest possible response. Well, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Seymour Hersh, probably the most legendary investigative journalist alive, just published a report that presents detailed claims that, on President Biden's orders, the US, with Norway's help, blew up the Nord Stream pipelines. Hersh has a long track record of journalistic integrity. This was a premeditated terrorist attack on European critical infrastructure. It was also environmental terrorism. Does the EU care? Do you need to know who did it, or do you want to know? Hersh says the US did it.